Welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast with Jacob Ayers, providing actionable content to help you along your journey to financial freedom through real estate investing. As the premier asset class, real estate has helped ordinary people just like you amass fortunes. The benefits of passive income from real estate investing will allow you to live a life you want. And now, your host, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and apartment deal syndicator, Jacob Ayers.
Hi, and welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, episode 131. Hey, I'm your host, Jacob Ayers. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Well, today our guest is our second repeat guest of the show, Inaky Strick. Inaky first aired in episode 101, and I wanted to revisit and reconnect with Inaky on the show today because he's always up to new things. He's one of these guys that's always brushing shoulders with new people. Always you see him at new networking events. And most recently, Inaky co-authored the #1 Amazon bestseller, The One Thing That Changed Everything. So we're going to be connecting with him today, catching up. So without further ado, let's jump into this week's episode. All right, today I welcome back on the show Inaky Strick. Inaky, hey, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Jacob, it's great to be back here with you again.
Hey, yeah, well, it's our pleasure, Inaky. Well, hey, Inaky, for the listeners who haven't yet listened to episode 101, that was your very first appearance on the show. So if they haven't listened to that, go back, check that out. But hey, for those people who maybe missed that show, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started investing in real estate, and just kind of your journey up to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. In episode 101, we go deep into my story, but just a small recap. I essentially learned that I wanted to be a real estate investor when I was in business school. So the last semester of college, I took a real estate finance course, and I figured out that was the one class that I really enjoyed. And, I decided I wanted to be a real estate investor. So I graduated from business school, and I said, well, how can I start making money while learning about real estate? Because I knew that I had to learn more before actually investing. So that's when I decided to get my license to sell property. So I ended up working with some of the best custom builders in Houston, represented builders as well as represented buyers and sellers. So I really got to learn how to do contracts and learn that side of real estate. After that, I got a huge opportunity to actually move down to the Caribbean and work with some of the best developers. And so I got to sell international property. It was the largest development in the entire country of Belize. And so it was a resort. And we marketed to investors for the U.S. because Belize just makes a lot of sense in so many different ways for investors from the U.S. to invest down there. And then I learned about that you can actually raise capital. So the more I learned about real estate investing, the more I learned that I needed to learn more. And so once I learned that there's a thing called syndication, that you can actually put together resources, teams, the property, and capital. You can invest in larger deals with other people and together achieve financial freedom. So before I doing that, I said, well, I want to raise capital for somebody who already has experience and already has a track record. That way I can learn this whole game from them as well as help them. So this past year, that's what I have been doing. I raised $4.7 million for somebody else in the past 7 months. And now it's time to go out on my own and start raising capital for my own project. So I'm very excited, Jacob.
Yeah, man, so much stuff to dig into there. And one thing right off the bat I want to unpack there, Inaky, is I think a lot of people coming out of school were in a position like you, like maybe knew they are really interested in real estate investing, but didn't quite know how to get started. And I think a cool thing you did was you said, well, you wanted to, build up some capital and generate some income so you can invest in real estate, but you also wanted to keep those synergies. So you started selling real estate. Well, I once was in like a pretty similar position in Inaky, and I had all these crazy ideas floating around in my mind, like, oh, I'm going to start this app, build this app and create a lawn mowing business around it, or I'm going to design my own kayaks and, sell fishing kayaks, and just like all these crazy ideas, and I'd be kind of a little scattered. But then I realized, like, okay, you really need to focus and develop some synergy. So what could I do? Well, I created this podcast and I start networking with investors like yourself and other people and, doing some things that have some more synergies towards the end goal, right? So instead of building a fishing kayak, now I'm talking about real estate investing. So I think that's a really cool thing, an important thing for listeners to take away from out there. Now, next you mentioned syndication and those leverages of, working with a team and, securing other people's money to take down larger deals. And what you're doing there is you're really helping other people get into investments that they otherwise couldn't have. So yeah, let's kind of jump into that route and tell us what's your intentions there and, what are your goals with, syndicating deals in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as syndication goes, syndication is really also helping like you mentioned, helping other people invest in real estate passively. So, there may be wealthy investors or just regular business professionals that may understand real estate, but they may not have the time to go and find the deals and do due diligence and learn about real estate. But they may already know that real estate is the one industry that has made the most millionaires in the world. So maybe they want to invest so then they can partner with somebody who has experience, who has a track record, who knows what they're doing, and they can invest passively with them. So essentially, you're helping people build wealth because you're doing all the work, you're putting all the resources together, and they're just investing passively with you.
Yeah, and Yaki, I think this is a big fear for a lot of people out there, and that's raising money. That's like this kind of gold bar, like this, big goal in the world of real estate investing. And so you've managed to raise $4.7 million. $4.7 million at such a young age. So how did you do that, and what kind of lessons did you take away from that?
Yeah, so I essentially did that with a team that had already a proven track record, and essentially, by attending conferences, I get to learn a lot about real estate. And one of the conferences that I highly recommend, it was called The Secrets of Successful Syndication by the Real Estate Guys. One of my mentors, Victor Minaj, he was on stage speaking, and Victor, he's the author of Magnetic Capital, and he also has a podcast that's called the Real Estate Espresso Podcast. He's a developer and he's a syndicator, but he essentially talks about the 5 principles of raising capital. And the 5 principles are that it first starts with relationships. You have to really build a good relationships with your potential partners. After relationships, they have to trust you. So if they don't trust you, they're never going to invest with you, because without trust, who would hand over $100,000 at a time to somebody to invest for them if they don't trust you? The third step is results. You have to have a track record. You have to build a track record so that you can show that you've done this before and that you have good positive results. The fourth step is a compelling opportunity. So whatever it is that you're investing in, the type of property or the asset class, it has to be a compelling opportunity. It has to be something that is very, very interesting. And the fifth step is alignment. You may have all the previous 4 steps right, a good relationship. They may trust you. You may have good results, and you may have a good, compelling opportunity. But if the deal doesn't align with your investor's goals, then do not do the deal. Figure out what your investor is looking for first. Are they looking for income? Are they looking for growth? Do they need tax benefits? So if that doesn't fit if your investment does not fit, even if they want to invest, do not take their money, because it's, you're with them for the long run. So make sure that all 5 steps are in there. So by learning from Victor Minaj, the 5 principles of raising capital, I could do all 5 steps except for number 3, which was results from first starting. So how do you get those results? Well, I figured, okay, well, first I would go raise capital for somebody else that already has results, already has a proven track record. And that way I can continue to learn about this syndication game and raising capital.
Yeah, I love it. And one thing I think we should pull out there, and Yaki, if I've got those sequential steps right, it's almost more important as you, the capital raiser, than the deal in terms of importance. So you've got to be able to develop that relationship and build that trust, then show that track record. And then finally, if the deal makes sense, lastly, then it's a good fit for everybody involved. And I think something important you also said is making sure it's a good fit for the investor, because if it doesn't match their goals, you don't want to put somebody in an investment that, 6 months or a year down the road, it's not going to be in a good alignment for that investor's interest. So yeah, really important stuff there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And because of that step, my end goal, my longer term goal is to have multiple projects that I can raise capital for. So, that's obviously going to take some time, but in the future, I would like to have different projects so that depending on what the investor is looking for, I can essentially provide them with my menu of options and then match them with the right investment for them.
Yeah, and I think just knowing you, Inaky, I know you've got a background in several different unique asset classes, and that is you've got some experience around mobile home parks. You've also got some experience around development of resort-style property down there in the Caribbean, like you alluded to in your intro. So, what do you think the future holds in terms of asset classes? You want to stay broad and focus on different projects so you can touch a larger investor base, or are you going to focus a niche? What's the strategy there? Do you have one yet?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you first have to focus on one asset class and really go deep in that so that you can make it successful. But you're absolutely right. I have experience in single family homes. I have experience in mobile home park communities, and I have experience in resort property. And right now, I think one of the biggest opportunities is in resort property, especially in Belize. So I think I'm going to be going down that route first and really exploring that opportunity and really working on in Belize. Belize is amazing. I mean, there's so many opportunities down there. Not only is there super low taxes, I think your property tax will never. I don't want to say never, but right now it's not higher than $600 per year, no matter the value of your property. There's also very low. Yeah, it's amazing. It's English speaking, so most people don't know that Belize is an English speaking country. So all of your contracts in real estate are going to be in English, so very easy to read. The currency is pegged to the US dollar. So for every US dollar, you get 2 Belize dollars. Direct flights from Houston, Miami. There's so many direct flights from different major cities. From Houston, it's only a 2-hour flight. And I mean, Belize is just beautiful. It totally makes sense. And the biggest opportunity in Belize is short-term rentals, because the demand for short-term rentals on the island called Ambergris Key, Belize, where I actually lived there for 6 months last year. The demand for short-term rentals continues to outstrip the supply, meaning that they can't build fast enough because it's an island. It's hard to get construction material down there. So even though there's a big opportunity, you still have to make sure that you're with a great team that can build in time and that knows what they're doing. And that's where I worked with Mahogany Bay Village down there, and they are the largest resort property in the entire country in Belize, and they really have good developers, good, amazing architects, and they have a really good system going on for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for the listeners that haven't been to Belize, I'd really highly suggest putting it on your bucket list. It's a beautiful country, just so cool. Inaky and I both live in Houston, so we're pretty grateful and lucky to be so close to that country. We can get there closer than we can some parts of the continental U.S. So, really lucky there. And there's a lot of things that make sense about investing in property in Belize, Inaky, but it's one of those things that investing internationally also brings up that fear. So, if somebody could partner with someone like you or the real estate guys, Robert Helms and Russell Gray, and, have a proven, partner in the deal, I think that, really is very valuable and helps the investor, overcome a lot of those fears and those hurdles of investing internationally. So yeah, really cool idea there. I'm excited for you with those opportunities. And, you've got a ton of unique experience down there. So I'm sure that'll work really well. And I look forward to, seeing you grow and invest down there. So really cool stuff there.
Thanks. And yeah, I mean, one thing you brought up is that fear, right? And so, my mentor, Robert Helms, anytime we're in a big room of investors, he always asks, raise your hand if you have fear of investing outside the country. and several people raise their hand. And then he asks a follow-up question, and he says, raise your hand if you have fear of having all your investments tied to one currency, one economy, and one country. And a whole nother group of people raise their hands. So that's kind of a mind shift there, right? So
Yeah.
So those are really good questions to ask yourself.
Yeah. Well, Inaky, you're always doing all kinds of new stuff, always up to something new. Every time I look around on social media, you're brushing shoulders with somebody cool. Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, Russell Gray, Robert Helmsman. I could go on and on. Every time I look around, you're, meeting people and, networking. One of the most recent things you've really done, I think is awesome, is you've co-authored a book. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the book's called The One Thing That Changed Everything. And I actually give people a free version that listen to me on your podcast. I get offered that on the last episode. So if they go to my website, inakystrick.com, that's just my first and last name.com, they can request a free copy if they say that they heard me in your podcast. But this is something that I'm really excited about because it actually ended up becoming a Amazon #1 best-selling book. And there's so many great entrepreneurs and business owners in this book. For example, Kyle Wilson, he's the mastermind behind this book. He put this book together, and he's worked with Jack Canfield before, who put together Chicken Soup for the Entrepreneurial Soul. And so now this book, The One Thing That Changed Everything, Kyle Wilson, he was also the founder of Jim Rohn International, and he was the marketer behind Jim Rohn. He's a great philosopher. Then we have Robert Helms, who he's one of the #1 real estate podcasters. He's a developer and a speaker. And then we have Ron White. He's a 2 times U.S. memory champion. And so he actually memorized all of the names of the people that passed away in Afghanistan. And he goes around the country and writes down their rank, their first and last name. And so people come from all over the country to watch him do this by memory. And I guess the point is that there's over 30 entrepreneurs in this book, and they all have a unique story. They all come from different backgrounds, different stories. And so we all talk about what was the one thing that changed everything for us, and everyone has a different answer for that. And for me is that I figured out early on, Jim Rohn said that you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And I found that to be very true. So I now tell people that whatever it is you want to do in life, it doesn't matter what it is, but whatever it is that you want to do in life, find those who are already successful in doing so, figure out how you can add value to them, and surround yourself with them. And so that's essentially the one thing that changed everything for me, and the one thing that has pushed my business forward faster than I could ever imagine.
Yeah, that's awesome, Inaky. And, you're just going to prove a point there. You've got so many brilliant co-authors with that book. So, finding those 5 people, combining your circle, really cool stuff there. Let's talk about your mindset around investing in yourself and your education and going to all these conferences and networking, because it's not a, cheap ordeal to go do all these things. So what's your mindset behind, making that investment in yourself and actually getting out and doing those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So right out of college, when I decided that I was going to be a real estate investor, I started saving up to invest in my first property. But then I realized, before investing in my first property, my first investment was actually in myself, in my education. So, and I continue to make investments in my education. Right here, I'm looking at different name tags from different events that I've attended, like the Secrets of Successful Syndication, the Investor Summit at Sea, the New Orleans Investment Conference, the Real Estate Wealth Expo, Think Realty. I have so many different badges from different conferences, and they're not it's not something cheap to attend, but you can't look at the cost. You have to look at the return on investment. And I go to conferences for 2 different things. I go to conferences for many different things, but the 2 main things is, number 1, the content, the things that you're going to learn while attending the conference. But the biggest reason why I go to conference is for the networking, for the relationships that I build there. And once you start attending conferences, and you continue to attend conferences, and you continue to make that investment in yourself, you figure out that a lot of the same people attend the conferences. So you really get to build those relationships. I have many very good friendships now with super, super successful people in the real estate investment world. And some of them have become my mentors and have helped me out whenever I have questions. So making that investment in your education is definitely something that I recommend doing.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Inaky, it's really cool catching up with you today. I don't want to keep you on here too long because, I mean, we could just spend all day talking about, your journey, your experience, your future. It's really cool stuff. But hey, one thing I want to pull out of this as we're wrapping up here is, what kind of advice would you give to that younger audience member, that newer real estate investor about getting started investing in real estate?
Yeah, I think advice is just to make the decision to become a real estate investor. I think it can be a little scary at first. And Bob Proctor says, sometimes we cannot connect the dots unless we're looking back. So, don't worry about how it's going to happen. Just make the decision that you're going to become an investor. When I made the decision about becoming a real estate investor, I had no idea that I was going to work with some of Houston's best custom builders, luxury builders. I had no idea that I was going to move down to Belize and work on the largest development in the whole country. I had no idea that I was going to raise $4.7 million in 7 months. So don't worry about what the steps are going to be. Just make the decision to become a real estate investor and seek out and learn and invest in yourself, and the things will start falling out into place.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Inaky, such a good conversation. I'm glad we got you back on the show. I'm sure this won't be the last time you're on. Well, hey, for those people who want to reach out to you, learn more about you, connect with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, I mean, they can go to my website, InakyStrick.com. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me on Instagram, Inaky_Strick. So they can also just send me a quick email at Inaky.Strick@gmail.com. But I think the best place is definitely to just head on to my website, InakyStrick.com, and fill out the contact form, say that they heard me on your podcast, and I'll send them out a free copy of The One Thing That Changed Everything.
And Inaky, thanks so much for that. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Till next time, take care.
Thanks, Jacob.
All right, that wraps up our episode today with our guest, Inaky Strick. Inaky shared so many valuable things, and once again has really showed us that he has such a bright future ahead of him in this business. Well, hey, if you'd like to connect with Inaky, obviously he's a very relatable guy and loves to speak with people about real estate investing. So if you'd like, feel free to reach out to him. You can visit him at www.inakystrick.com. That's INAKYSTRICK.com. We'll link his website in the show notes for you to connect with him. Well, hey, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. If you like what you've heard, please go over and leave a rating and review on whichever platform you're listening on. Till next week, signing off, I'm your host, Jacob Ayers.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, providing you actionable content to build your real estate empire. Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for personal advice. The opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have a potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom, LLC, exclusively.